So today, I want to answer the question, what is a double bass? Now, for some of you that might seem like a ridiculous question because you'll go, well, that's a double bass. Correct, well done, it is a double bass. But it's one of those instruments that, not as many people know what double bass is. And those who do know what a double bass is aren't really sure what it's all about. So I thought I'd just go over some basics about the instrument itself and very basics of how to play one. I'm going to introduce you to the different parts of the instrument and show you what it's all made up of, just so you know your way around it. And then we're going to go over how you hold the instrument, how to tune the instrument, and the very basics of how to play a few little notes. So for you beginners out there, this is a great place to start. So the first thing about a double bass is it is a member of the string family, obviously. And it's a very large member of the string family. Sometimes I do wish I'd taken up the violin. So there's a lot of technical names to the double bass. You don't really need to know them all, so I'm going to cover just some names that you might come across in tutorial videos or lessons or what have you. So first of all, we have the top of this. This is called the head. So we've got the head and the body of the bass. And on the top of the head, we have the scroll for obvious reasons. Looks very beautiful. And just underneath the scroll, we've got these 4 shiny metal plates, twisty things, or whatever you want to call them. These are actually called machine heads or tuning heads, depending on what you want. And these, you turn them to make the string sharp or flat or to bring it in tune. Below this, we've got the neck of the bass. And on the neck, we have the black part here is called the fingerboard. So this is where you'd play the instrument and hold the notes. And on top of that, we've got the strings. And then the distance, this is a really important part because this is something I didn't know when I started playing double bass, and guitar, it applies to guitar as well. And I still truly believe to this day, this is why I can't play guitar, because my first guitar was not set up properly. It's my excuse anyway, 4 strings, not 6. So the gap between the fingerboard and the strings is called the action. So the height of the strings away from the fingerboard, this is the action, and this is really, really important. Because it all depends on how well you can play the instrument, it depends on different styles as well, the different height. If you're a jazz player, you generally want a really low action, because jazz players will play all the way down here, and using thumb technique. This is something I'm still working on myself, so we're not going to go into thumb technique. But basically, the lower the action, the easier it is to play. You'll end up with less calluses on your fingers. But for the style I do the rockabilly slap bass, which means if you have a too low action, it's very, very difficult to grab the string for a slap. By the way, my bass is deliberately detuned. We'll come to that later. But yeah, so if you're going for a swing or jazz style, then a low action would suit you very well. If you're going for a rockabilly style, you probably want a slightly higher action. I do a hybrid of the 2 styles. I like to play a bit of jazz and I love to play my rockabilly. So I have sort of a happy medium between the 2, which is probably about, let's say, 7mm on the G string. It's around there. But if you want to get it set up properly, do go to a good luthier to get it set up. That's really important. It's not advisable to try and do it yourself unless you really know what you're doing. So below the fingerboard and the strings, we've got these 2 big holes here, which are called the F holes, again for obvious reasons. The F holes are just where the sound comes out. And if you look inside the F hole, and you probably need a little torch, but inside the bass there is a post which goes from the front to the back of the bass. This is called the sound post. If you get some really drastic variations in temperature, it can fall out, which is not a lot of fun trying to put it back, but it does stand between the 2, and that amplifies the sound that comes out of the double bass. The next part we have at the very, very bottom, which I'm going to lift it up. So this bit you can see here, this is called the end pin. The end pin is adjustable, so if you are a short ass like me, you have it very, very low. I do actually have it a little bit higher than usual because I have big heels. If I was on my feet, I'd probably have it flat on the ground, or maybe a smaller bass. But no, I can play that to your heels. But it is good. So basically you want the height of your bass. When you hold your hand in this position, you want your elbow to be in line with your shoulder. So that's a really good position to be in when you're playing bass. If you're too high or too low, you'll probably get a lot of shoulder pain and you won't be able to move up and down the bass as easily as you want to, which can affect your playing when you get more to an intermediate and advanced level. So the end pin comes right out all the way for really, really big people. But I mean, if you're a really, really large person, like my friend Bernd, who's an amazing bass player, who's in Germany, you get a full-size bass. And I've tried to play Bernd's bass, and I generally need a step ladder to even get up there. It's huge. This is actually a 3/4, and a 3/4 bass is the most common in rockabilly. You don't usually find many full-size basses in sort of rockabilly and swing music. They're usually more for orchestral stuff and bow. But the bigger the bass, the bigger the sound, which is a good thing. So if you are 6'6", go for a full size, if you can get away with it. And if your kid's learning, you can get a half size. I started on a half size, a quarter, and even an eighth. So it's never too young to start a double bass. My son's 12 and he can play this all right now, but he'd probably do better with a smaller one. But if you've got little kids that go, no, double bass, it's a great instrument, go for a little one. You can get a little one. So the next thing is the bridge. Okay, so the bridge is this piece of wood here. This is not physically attached to the bass, it's wedged between the strings and the body of the bass. What this does is it transfers the sound from the strings into the bass to give you a proper notation and a good volume. And it also keeps the strings off the fingerboard so they produce a nice sound. Again, it's not in tune. It's driving me crazy. We're getting to tuning soon. So that's the bridge. And if you play live, especially in a band like I do, you'll want a pickup. And if you use an acoustic pickup, which we'll go into in another video, different types of pickups. But I use an acoustic. So if you use an acoustic, you will wedge it into the bridge here. My pickup's actually a rockabilly pickup, so it's actually got two. This one here is for the note sound, and this one here picks up the slap sound. And my pickup actually has two controls, so one for the volume of the note and one for the volume of the slap, which is very cool. And I have to say, this lovely little piece of equipment was recommended by one of my bass idols and a very good friend, Steve Whitehouse. And I still want to say thanks to him today because I was struggling so much with feedback. But we'll do a review on this little piece of equipment in another video. It is wonderful, so thanks, Steve. So we've got the bridge. The pickup lives in the bridge. Usually you'll find when you get a new bass, your pickup does not fit in the bridge. So all you need to do is get a file and very, very slowly, take a little bit off the thin part of the wood in the gap, just enough so, and keep testing, just enough so it just wedges in there. It's got to be nice and tight for you to get good sound. So that is a double bass in its entirety. So the first thing you're going to want to know when you first pick up a double bass is, how on earth do I hold the thing? Because you'll get people bringing it here or people putting it flat. You'll find that. But the ideal angle, it's interesting, is you want the corner here balanced just in that part of your groin here. This gives you the ideal angle for playing all the notes with a good fluency. If you go here, you're going to struggle with your hands and trying to get around. If you go too far this way, it's going to be very difficult to get around, especially when you get down here. So you want it just, and plus it should pretty much balance itself. You can pretty much hold it up with one finger. If I'm really clever, I might be able to get it to balance all on its own. Not for very long, but it does balance very, very nicely, and it's at a very good angle to play there. If you're right-handed, or if you have a right-handed bass and you have no choice, even if you're left-handed, the bass goes on your left-hand side. Your left hand will play the notes, So this will pick the tuning on the frets, which we obviously don't have. And the right hand makes the noises. And that is how you hold your double bass, just like this. And again, keeping this elbow high. If you let your elbow drop, your tuning can go, because you'd be surprised how much of a difference playing a note like this and playing a note like this. If you want really good tuning and you want to be really accurate musically, you need to keep this elbow nice and high as you play. And it's also very good for your posture, and it can, you know, if your shoulder is too tense or in the wrong position, you can end up with a lot of problems. So you want to try and get a nice good frame, keep your shoulders relaxed, because you don't want to end up with muscle tension. That can really, in long term, if you're playing in a band or you're doing it professionally, can be a real problem. So the next step, we're going to tune the bass. So as you heard earlier in the video, it is horribly out of tune. One of the reasons it's horribly out of tune is it's been sat in the cold for a little while, and it's just come into the warm, and that messes with it. But also I made sure it was out of tune, just so I could show you how to properly tune a bass. So the first thing about tuning is you need to know what notes to tune to. So a double bass is exactly the same as your standard bass guitar. You've got E, A, D and G, just like that. To tune it, you can either buy yourself a little tuner. I'd recommend getting a good one. The problems you have when you're tuning a double bass is when you get to the very low frequencies, it can be very, very hard for a tuner to pick up that low frequency. So get one that is recommended for double bass. You can also download apps. There was an amazing app that I've been using for a long time. I can't remember the name of it, but I've just upgraded to a new iPhone and the app hasn't been upgraded, so I'm devastated. I'm still looking for a new favourite. At the moment, I'm using the Fender tuning app, which is not too bad. A couple of drawbacks: you keep getting Fender advert pop-ups every so often, which is, you know, as a double bass player, not that useful. And it's a little bit finicky to handle, but it does the job. It's a good tuner for a guitar, a bass, a bass guitar. And it's also got a chromatic tuner on there, so it's not too bad. It's worth looking at if you've got nothing else. If I do find one, I'll post the link in the info section when I find my new favourite. Now, the third option for tuning is I have my preamp, my pickup and preamp. The preamp has a built-in tuner, which is fantastic because the one thing, on one hand, it can tune from my pickup, which means the problem of picking up the low frequency notes is non-existent. I don't get that. I can also tune in very loud environments, which is fantastic because obviously when I'm working and we're in a pub and we're about to start a gig, you know, you want to make sure your bass is in tune, especially if it's changed temperatures from being in the van to being in the venue. You need to give it a good tune, so you're going to have to be able to tune it in a noisy environment, and the little handheld tuners are very difficult to do that with. But this preamp has a built-in one, so we're going to tune it now. So first one, I'm going to switch my tuner on, and I'm going to play an open G. So the tuner is telling me that this is flat. So when a note is flat, it means it is below in pitch where it should be. So to correct this, we turn the tuning heads. There we go. So that, turning it clockwise, should have thought of this beforehand, turning it clockwise sharpens it, which is what you want to do when it's flat. Turning it anti-clockwise flattens it. If it doesn't, it's the opposite. It just means your bass has been strung differently. And it's not really a massive problem, and it probably does want to be restrung because you want the string going over. Too much detail. But, you know, if it is the other way, don't panic too much, just tune it the other way. So we're going to, oh, G's nicely in tune now. And then we're going to move down to the D. Ooh, it sounds horrible. You can hear it. Ooh. We're going to bring it up. Tune it nicely to a D. So the tuner has the lights on it. You'll be able to see that the lights show you, oh, I've gone a little bit flat. If the light is at the bottom, it shows you it's flat. If the light is at the top, it shows you it's sharp. But if you only have the light in the middle, then that's fine. I'm going to go into the A. Still a little bit flat. We're all flat here. And there we go. And then down to the E, which is horribly flat. In fact, it's a D. There we go. That's so flat, it's actually an entire tone of tune. And we just go back and check the tuning. The reason you go back and check the tuning is because if your bass is really out of tune, and you tune a string and you have to turn quite a lot, it can then detune the other strings because the tension of the strings changes. It changes very slightly the position of the bridge and the tension on all the other strings, so you need to go back and retune, especially when you get a brand new bass. You're going to have to tune it again and again and again until you can get to stay relatively in tune. Or new strings as well, you have the same problem when you get new strings. So that's it. That is your major introduction to a double bass, which is not a cello, for anybody who wonders. Cellos are smaller, we sit down, big end pin, you know, all that kind of stuff. Or if you're in, I can't remember the name of the band. There's a fun band, a guy plays it like a guitar, which is great. But no, this is a double bass, the biggest string instrument you can get. And that's that. So if you have any questions, please comment in the comment section. I will reply to everything, so please do ask anything you want to know. And if you have any requests for future videos, again, please comment or message me and I will try and cover as many topics as you can think of. So thank you for watching and please subscribe to the channel. So thanks very much and I'll see you again next week.